Hello and welcome everyone to Spiritual Nerd Talk. This is like special edition with our guest Georgiana. And this is what we do today about the doula work.
Yay, and food. I'm really excited to have you. Thank you so much for joining us, Georgiana.
My pleasure.
I've been on your website preparing for this conversation, and I just want to say that just going to your website inspires me to upgrade and live my best life, honestly. So beautiful work. I feel like your essence was translated perfectly.
Thank you.
There, and all your offerings too, very inspiring, and I look forward to getting into that. I thought though we could start with your suggestion to talk about Kundalini yoga a bit, because we're all Kundalini yogis here, and you had the very interesting question about Kundalini yoga history, which is so mysterious. But I can share the little bit that I know, and then we all can share what we know, and maybe we'll all learn something. So maybe we can just start with that. Do you have anything to say about that, Nicole? You like that idea?
That water was cold. That was like a cold water shower now. Like, oh, Nicole, you're on the spotlight. Do you have anything to say about it? Yeah, I think I also want to say hi to Georgiana, and I also went, of course, to your homepage to prepare a little bit for this call because we don't know each other in person. We haven't spoken before, so that was really new to me. And I love the work that you do. I find it so interesting that that you like the point on the website that came to my mind, the that came in like a shooting light star was preparing dads. That you coach new dads to be into the role, and that was for me, it was like, oh my God, this is so amazing. Like, why never have I ever heard of that before? And so that's that. Hi, so nice to meet you. And then Kundalini yoga history, I think Georgiana seems to have probably the idea of on what she wants to talk about that, because for me, I'm like, I don't know where to start even.
Yeah, maybe you share your thoughts
about what, the dads?
No, the Kundalini yoga history. We can just start on your question. I thought was so interesting. And maybe
I can only share what I know.
Yeah,
I can only share what I know, or what I was taught and how I interpreted what I was told. But obviously, we know it's mysterious and we don't exactly have it written down. But what I was taught is that it was a very specific type of yoga that was kept and hidden in the Sikh religion for a very, very long time. And only privileged spiritual teachers were allowed to be given the lineage. And it was reserved for the elite. So it was for those who wanted special powers. And Yogi Bhajan was given the lineage, and he was told not to teach it to anyone. And then he brought, he came to the West, and it was the 60s, so everyone was off their heads, and he was teaching Hatha yoga, and he was like, this isn't strong enough, this isn't working. So he taught Kundalini yoga, and he fell into a coma, and then his students did long ekankars over him. So they used the lineage in its purity and for its purpose with, the purity of their heart, and it worked. And so they broke the spell. And then we are permitted to receive the lineage now. That is what I was taught. Who knows? I mean, it's Chinese whispers, you know what I mean? It's like such an ancient lineage. And I also think, from listening to my teacher teaching in class, Yogi Bhajan wasn't just teaching the lineage. He was cognizing specific meditations as and when they were coming through to him based on where the planets were aligned. And if the students weren't paying attention, And if something came up in the class, then they would miss that opportunity for him to channel that for them as a community, because he was a conduit. And so that's what I know. And I've also noticed, the kundalini mandala that we have on our walls, which is like the Shakti, and then it's surrounded by all the gurus. That just signals to me that our lineage is running on Shakti energy. It's a feminine lineage. That's why 80% of the community are women. And the fact that that energy, so pure, has to be protected and surrounded by the fraternity, by the men, by the gurus, just shows you how powerful it is. And it indicates to me the dynamic between the masculine and the feminine, which is like, if you really want the feminine to shine and be pure and its power, which, it's creative energy, the whole universe is running on it. It's the first dominant energy. It needs to be protected because it's very magnetic and it can attract negativity, and you don't want that. So that is an indication of how the fraternity can protect the feminine energy, which is, I think, something that we all really need to remember right now.
Absolutely. You just sharing that just helped illuminate something for me, that in my 17 years of walking this path, I hadn't seen it that way. So thank you very much for that. It's really beautiful.
And I also think that there's another very subtle teaching in our lineage, which is alluded to, but it's never really defined. But I see it all the time, which is that if the masculine energy really wants to make use of the feminine energy in its most pure spiritual form, then if you're protecting it, we've got 16 times more power than the masculine. And it's not physical, it's spiritual. So in Hawaii, they call it mana. It means spiritual power. So it's like, if you're in that dynamic with the female and she's beaming on you, there's nothing you cannot do. So
I love it. Wow.
It's subtly alluded to.
Yeah, no, it's it's the Mahashakti. It's in that mantra, Adi Shakti mantra. It's all right there. It's laid out. Wow, that's really beautiful. Well, I wasn't taught much more than you about, the history, because it is so hidden. I think of it as a river that goes through time and space beyond our written history. So it's been handed down much further than we have any sort of record of. And then it flowed into the Sikh, container, 500 years ago, 600 years ago. And really it was the joining of, I think, Guru Nanak's son was a Bal yogi. He was a yogi. And so I think that was the yogi lineage probably started to merge right there. And then with Guru Ram Das, there are some beautiful stories of Guru Ram Das and connecting with the yogis. And so I think that's really interesting how the paths merge, intertwine in the history there. And then there's this book on tantric numerology that I read a long time ago when I was first starting down the road of Kundalini yoga, and it illuminated the stories of the 10 Sikh gurus in terms of the 10 bodies, and showed how the story of their lives really was a story of each body. So the first body of Guru Nanak, the soul body, second body, the negative mind, and so on. I actually pulled out the book so I could remember a bit more of it. It might have a different cover now. It's just called
I've got that book.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating, and that helped me see the multidimensional reality of this path, and how many layers there are to it. I'm a very sort of third dimensional person. I feel like I'm super in the earth. And that really was the first, along with all the meditation, of course, helped me kind of understand how much deeper this whole, rabbit hole, for lack of a better term, goes. So thank you for that, about the interplay of the feminine and the masculine in this path. That's really helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure. But also, our tantric numerology is connected to the Kabbalah. So
Yes.
so directly.
Yeah, very directly.
You can't have one without the other.
No, it's really interesting. I study Kabbalistic astrology, just to have the astrology part to my whole work as well, because it's like fundamental to all mysticism, and it's very fascinating how much parallels are in Kabbalah and the Kabbalistic astrology and Kundalini yoga. And it's very fascinating as well, because they say both. Like, what I learned is that Kundalini yoga is like 5,000 plus years old. That's what I kept in my mind. And that it's very closely also entangled with the Tibetan Buddhism, and how, because in Tibetan Buddhism, there are some very sacred lineages in there, which were holding a high tantric knowledge as well, and yogic knowledge as well. There are like certain types of lineages in Tibetan Buddhism where they have these holy teachings as well. And so what I found super interesting is to see the direct link from the Tibetan Buddhist yogic tantric lineage and the vibrational frequency they were holding, plus then the Kabbalistic teachings and the 10 bodies and the tree of life and the elements and all of that, with the Sata, Nama, and like all these entanglements, plus that Yogi Bhajan, his teacher, had 2 disciples. He had Yogi Bhajan and then this Tibetan monk, which got the Mahantantric first, right? So that, like, to me, that was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. And for me, like, I'm a relatively young yogi when it comes to this lifetime. It took me quite a while to get out of the mud of karma. Let's say it that way, to free myself from my vibrational mud to even be able to reach that lineage. But when I saw it and when I arrived at it, it was so clear. It was like, there is no doubt. It was like, yeah, okay, like, no question. But
it's a very specific lineage.
Very specific. And it's like, it's not for everyone.
And some people are magnetically pulled and some people are magnetically repelled by it.
Totally. Yes. Yes.
So true.
And you have to trust that.
Oh yeah. And I think it's very it's also very magical, because the tantric energy, because like all on planet, like what helped me the most to understand also the cities and like all the sacred little teachings that are in between the lines, were like, oh yeah, these things are kind of like magic. They're kind of like not normal human life, real things, like
Supernatural.
And we still, and I remember I have supernatural abilities since I was born. Since I can think, I have all these strange things that I could do, and that were like super not cool when you're young, but now they are. But I didn't know.
Like what?
I can change the weather, the time. I always had a time city. And I'm a healer. So I have like 3, I would say, that I know of.
Being able to change the weather is usually a sign of a positive relationship with the elements. So your presence has an effect on the weather, which is a sign of shamanism.
Yeah, that as well. It's like, and it's super fascinating to I studied since I'm young. I studied like all these different types of mysticism, mystical schools. That's the right word. And I studied a lot of different religions, a lot of different backgrounds, because I'm very analytical, so I need to understand shit and it needs to make sense. And with Kundalini yoga, it was the first time that I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. This is like, but it was not logical only in my mind, it was logical in my experience. It was finally like being back in, like the fish in the water.
Home.
Yes. It's, and I think, you know, for me, the whole, the problem with the history of this lineage, or the problem, it's not a problem, but I would say if there is any problem for people also on the outside, but also for myself, I would say, is that it's so closely entangled with the Sikh religion.
Well,
Because
it's
I mean,
not understood. It's
not
confusing for
understood.
people.
It is very confusing for people. In the beginning, when you're like looking at it, like when you're looking from outside, and I quite well remember, like, because it's not so long time ago. So I remember I was like, why are they all wearing white? And why does it look like a sect? And why is it
why
like,
are they wearing those turbans?
no, why are they wearing? No, I liked the turbans.
In Santa
I remember
Monica.
that. Yeah, I actually liked the turban, and I was like, why? Like, and
Well, I think everyone needs to remember that it's all for energetic reasons.
of
And
course,
it's everything, it's a method, it's a technology. So everything has a reason behind. That's why we teach special classes on numerological days. And we wear the turban not because, you know, it gives you a cranial sacral adjustment, and it, you know, a lot of spiritual paths cover their
yes,
crown chakra. And Mother Mary, even, she wore a little tuni on her head. It's to contain the energy. And we do pranayams that look weird because we're trying to flood our body with oxygen, and we program them with mantras because they're an intelligent sound current. And, you know, everything has a reason.
Yes,
everything has a reason for why we do it, but it looks bizarre.
Totally.
But it's worth it. The results are so worth the effort.
I agree.
Tell us how you got into Kundalini originally, Georgiana.
Well, I was very young. I was like 19 years old. I had just been to India for the first time. So I went to Calcutta after I left school. And I was, you know, I always wanted to go to India. I always felt like that was my spiritual home. And when I went there, it was a total activation. I was like, everything here makes sense to me. Everything is out in the open for you to see. All the corruption, all the joy, the reality of life here. There's nothing swept under the carpet. And it was Gandhi who said India is held together by invisible strings. So there was this like chaos, this harmony within the chaos that I just felt was so honest about what life is. And I always kind of knew I was going to be a meditator and a yogi, but I got so bored in people's classes. Like I would do vinyasa flow or like whatever, all the hatha things. And I'd be sitting at the back, like splitting my split ends, just bored out of my brains. And I was like, when am I going to find the teacher? I was looking for a teacher that had a very specific energy. And then I came to Santa Monica for work, and I got involved romantically with someone who went to Yoga West. So I started going to Yoga West, and the first time I did Kundalini, it was like that moment. I was like, oh, I finally found it. This is it. Because it had like this intensity that I need. And the pranayams were just to the point. And I had immediate feeling of oh wow, I feel so much more clear-headed at the end of a class than I do from any other yoga. And I think, you know, I kind of knew that the teacher that I was studying with at that time was not right for me, because I wasn't connecting to their students. And so I just studied on my own. So I had videos, I bought some books, and I just chugged along. And I was like, God, it's such a shame that there isn't a proper teacher taking the reins of this practice, because it's so powerful. And I remember seeing these leaflets of Hari Jivan. It's so funny, but I was like, that's an interesting blue on the leaflets. It had this very specific blue on it, and it really caught my attention. But I was so young and I wasn't really established in LA. I didn't even have a car. I was in and out of LA like every 3 months. So I never had the opportunity to go and find him. And then I was looking to become a teacher in my late 20s as like a gift to myself during my Saturn return. I was like, this will keep me grounded during that huge shift. And I was trying to figure out which teacher training to do. And someone was like, you've got to do Hari Jivan. And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I've never been to one of his classes. So I went to Rama, and I nearly threw up in my first class. And I was like, this dude is legit. And took his teacher training.
Wow.
And I was transformed. I like crawled in on all fours like a radioactive newt coming out of my 20s, which was a grand adventure for me in my personal life. And I came out like just light as a feather. And I had a series of huge spiritual awakenings during those 9 months. And it transformed my life. And I was just so grateful to have found a teacher that really loves his teacher. You know, so that love that's what I was looking for. I was looking for this loyalty within the lineage. And you know, all the amazing teachers that he's created that I also got to study with. So it was like, I was like, I wish I'd found this guy sooner. So yeah, and you know, it's a love. And then I've met so many great dear friends through that community, and we all support each other. So I suddenly went from studying alone to having this community of people who all identify as starseeds. You know, we're here to work on our 9th body. That's what we're working on, is our subtle body, and squirreling away attainments, and you know, taking our practices really, really seriously, because that's something that is important to us in this lifetime. So we have a place to do that, which is really, really special.
I love that. How does this transcribe to your business? Because I feel it does. It's so like whenever we have the pleasure to have these talks and we have like serious yogis here, they all have their own businesses. It's like all of them.
Well, I just recently left Los Angeles. So I'm like 1 year into living in a new place. So in LA, I was working full time, really intensively as a postpartum doula. And I used kundalini to keep myself clean whilst I was doing that, because I was holding babies a lot. And, you know, it's like they sync with your nervous system. And so whilst their mother is recovering and resting, you know, I'm able to hold their baby, and their baby is also able to rest really, really well, because I'm chanting over them. And some of my clients were like, why does our baby sleep best with you? And I was like, yeah, I know I have a pretty hyperactive personality, but I do, you know, I have meditated a lot, and my nervous system is very, very grounded. So that's how I was using it in LA. And actually, now that I'm living in Montana, it's so funny. It's like I'm working in a retreat center, and we have a yoga yurt, and they were teaching kundalini when I started working there. And I was like, thank God, you know, these people understand healing. And I was like, this is a really, really good sign. This means that I belong here. And then they started asking me to teach. So now I get to teach in this beautiful yurt.
That's so
and
amazing.
someone got me a gong, so I get to play the gong.
Wow, you're led there for sure. And so
I know it's definitely set up here.
Oh, absolutely. You're director of culinary operations.
Yeah.
That's what I read. And
Yeah.
how many, I think it's fast. I'd love to hear a little bit about the retreat center. I think it's so cool. It's for special operations people
Yeah.
in the US Army.
Yeah. In the
Awesome.
military.
How many people are there at any given time? Like, how big is the facility?
Well, it's a private property in the beautiful wilderness of Montana. There's no cell phone reception. It's right on the river. There's a playground, there's a massive house, and then there's a ton of little cabins where the participants come and stay. And we run kind of retreats to help, you know, people coming home from war reintegrate back into life, and how to keep their family together, and how to nourish their marriages after they've been deployed for so many years.
Wow.
And obviously they're special operations, so they're highly skilled warriors. And I just love that they love kundalini. They've responded really well to it. And they were like, yeah, this is the yoga for warriors. And I was like, you guys would know better than anyone.
Yeah, totally. Wow. That's so
and so
inspiring.
we have programs for the men, we have programs for the spouses, and then we have family programs. So it's for the whole family.
Awesome.
Everyone is taken into consideration.
Wow, that's so cool. And so are you making all the food? Do you have people helping you with the food?
I make all the food. People do help me, but I'm pretty specific of how I like things done.
Thank God you have so much prana, because I feel like like creating food as a private chef, it's like the food is as good as the prana of the person. It's like I can literally feel the difference. I was like, oh, she's a chef. It must be so good what she does.
Well, I will say it is a secret. That is like the secret ingredient.
Yeah, it is.
And also I'm a generator. I'm a generator with Jupiter and Aries.
Okay.
And like, so it's like, if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, it's just not good. But if I enjoy what I'm doing, I could do it until the end of time and not get tired. So, but yeah, I mean, that's what I talk about in the classes with the warriors and with the mothers, is building pranic reserves. And especially before you're 36 years old, because then you're in that second 18-year life cycle. It's like, especially in the ages of 33, 35, 36, like that's what you should be working on. You should have been working on that from the age of 18, is squirreling away pranic reserves. You can do that so easily with a quick physical set and 31 minutes of breath of fire every day.
I love that.
You will be off to the races. And I do think that that's something that I like to talk about with people who want to be parents, but they haven't done it yet. I'm like, start doing this now. Build the pranic reserve so that you can keep up with your kids. And if you're over the age of 36, you're kind of behind, but you can still do it.
Yeah, I always give them 8-stroke breath. That's also something like the rhythm of the 8-stroke breath and the pranics, like especially when they're born at 8, 17 or 26, is like super beneficial for them to like really build that up better as well.
It's more disciplined. Yeah, and you know, a short physical set to build pranic reserves would be cat cow, swan, sterling dandes, you know, all the things where, because you store them on your back. So it's like anything with a spinal inversion will help you do that.
It's lovely.
That's what I focus on in my own practice, is building pranic reserves, because then I can do whatever I want. I never run out of energy. Unless I'm doing something I don't enjoy, which is the generation.
Can I ask something about that job that you're currently doing? Can you feel a change in because you seem to be a person that is very on a dharmic path. and like being entangled with war and with people that were in war, etc. Can you feel a change in the vibrational field of yours since you do that? Like in sense of that you kind of would take on karma or take on certain kind of vibrations of the people that were in war, or like what's your experience with that? Because sometimes I'm like, I think it's a super interesting setup, but like, is it kind of also supporting like the war and people that go to war, and like, you know what I mean with the question that I'm asking?
Well, all I can speak is from where I stand, because I'm not a warrior. I've never been, so I haven't seen what they have seen. But from me personally, it's like in Los Angeles, I was working with women the whole time. I was like living on the edge of the sea, right by the ocean. I saw the ocean every day when I drove out of my garage, and that's very feminine. And I was around feminine power all the time. And so it was like a lot of feminine energy. And that affected me because I was defending them and protecting them. So in a way, I was kind of in my yang.
In the
Yeah, I was
masculine.
sort of, I was like a bit more in my Artemis, a bit more in the kind of masculine meridians. And then when I came to Montana, it's like now I'm suddenly around a lot of the masculine. And they're actually the most helpful people. It's like they have this, from one theme I've noticed with all the warriors, is they have this like reflex where they just want to help. They're the most helpful people. So it's like now suddenly I'm in my feminine. I get to be in my feminine.
In the receiving.
Yeah. So that's nice. And it's also nice to be able to nurture people. And just in general, that's what I like doing. So it's like that everyone deserves that. And that's why, I like coaching the dads, is because I actually have 5 little brothers. I grew up with boys. I'm the eldest sister. I have 2 blood brothers and 3 stepbrothers that I got when I was 9 years old. So, and I will roll up to work, and the mother was giving birth the day before, and the dad answers the door in his underpants and his pupils are completely dilated because he's been at a birth the whole night. And he looks at me and he's like in a state of total shock and says, "Women are the superior sex. Like, I've never seen anything like that in my life. That was so powerful." And so that affects men too. And also to see the woman that you love in so much pain and not understanding that the pain is essential and that it's created by Mother Nature. It's how can not creating a baby come with a price? And part of that intensity is it's initiating into the intensity of motherhood, because motherhood is intense. And so it's kind of like, it's to catch your attention and to encourage you to bond with this little person and imprint on them so that they know that they're safe. And how could that not affect a man? And so it makes me think of my brothers, and only one of them is married at this point, but like, I care about them feeling like they can protect their partner whilst she's going through whatever she's going through, whether it's in hospital or at home. Men can make such a huge difference in protecting their partner from, receiving obstetrical violence. Them not being educated it's really a crime. And there are so many amazing birth workers that teach. One of my favorite ones is Leah in LA. She teaches this amazing course called Your Natural Birth. It's the Bradley method. And she does the mom and the dad. And she's like, at the beginning, they're kind of a little bit like they're daydreaming, but like session 2, and by session 2 or 3, she has their full attention because they're like, wow, this is really fascinating and complex. And then they're like texting her during the birth, kind of really proud about how they're protecting their partner. So it's like, of course we have to educate these men, and we have to teach them how to change a nappy properly and how to hold the baby, because their babies are so delicate and they prefer at the beginning a softer body. and females tend to have more fat percentage on them. So they love doing skin to skin with females because we're like a little bit more cozy. And sometimes if you watch a guy holding a baby, he's like, what do I do? Like, this is so delicate. So you have to kind of teach them how to do skin to skin, and then he can have an amazing relationship with his kid from the beginning. And that gives his wife a break. You know, she can go and have a bath, or, you know, go and stare at a wall, daydream or whatever.
Pranayama.
Yeah, do her sadhana, make some yogi tea.
That's so inspiring. Thank you. Wow.
Yeah, it's funny how they're left out.
Yeah, very.
It's interesting. I hearing I'm from Europe. I'm in Switzerland, Europe, and I don't have the impression that they're as left out here as probably what you experienced in the States, because
America is different.
I think so. I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I know that all the birth courses here, at least in Switzerland, that people have to do them. They're like kind of mandatory. Timmy, can't you do it?
Good.
And the dads go there as well. So, but even though they do, like the what a lot of men don't seem to fully understand is how important it is that they hold the space, that they hold the protection, and because that's the masculine, that's basically the masculine essence, right? And we as women have masculine energies within us as well. I mean, I'm a trauma therapist. I work with EMDR. Whenever I hold space for someone to heal, this is a masculine kind of work. So I had to totally adapt. My dog is super annoyed because someone came home and he's like, oh my God, someone's there. Sorry. So whenever I hold space for people, I could feel how I needed to change my personal sadhana to a more feminine or more masculine sadhana in order to balance out my body. And it's so fascinating to hear you talk about the work as a doula and the space holding and the protection that you had. And then now the work with the men and the nurturing part of it. I find to find balance within our masculine and feminine energies and the different possibilities that we find in our work. Also, I mean, Jamila as a creative, which is a super feminine, a super feminine task, you must have also a high need of a quite strong masculine protective sadhana, right? Like, does that
I feel like when I go, I have to tap into my masculine to put any form to anything, you know, like to actually get work done, or else, you know, I don't think I think I would just make like flower mandalas with actual flowers and just sort of, you know what I mean? Like I have to kind of give more structure, which is masculine for sure too. And I mean, every artist is also a business person because of the world we live in. So I've been a very masculine, and it's actually been, oh my goodness. I mean, it took me so long to realize I was mainly living in my masculine because I was trying to make this business work. So I spent so many years of my life not even realizing the dynamic that I was living in. I honestly am humbled by the fact that you can go to your midlife and still not get the most basic things sorted out. So yeah, I wanted to ask Georgiana about, I'm really fascinated by preparing for pregnancy and the teachings around that. And so if you have just general teachings that are good for maybe any women out there that are thinking about having a baby, just things to work on, keep in mind, specific or general or both. And then also after that, I really would love to hear about foods that are good for reserve, you're building your pranic reserves, and rebuilding, if you feel like maybe you've lost some of your reserves, because
Well,
life is crazy.
I would say the best way to prepare for having a baby is being very mindful about the partner that you choose. So
Yeah.
before you even start preparing your body for a pregnancy, you need to be mindful about the man or the woman or the person that you're going to be raising this baby with on every level, because it's not a Tinder date. It's, you're contributing to the evolution of humankind when you're merging your genes together with someone like this. And you want to make sure that your kid has their presence in their life so that they can benefit from knowing a part of themselves and receiving that guidance. And it's a very hardcore relationship, and it ain't sexy. You know what I mean? It's like, I say to some of my friends, I'm like, it all starts with a romantic first date and it ends up in 2,500 nappies in the first year.
Totally.
So it's like, I say there's like 3 types of romantic relationships. There's the people that you can successfully have fun with, you know what I mean, like summer romances. There's the people you could be married to and not have kids with really, really well. You could live together, you could have a great partnership, you could merge resources and support each other, travel the world, do the things you want to do. And then the third and final one is, can you be with this person and raise a child with them? And that is so intense. And you may not meet that person. As a woman, we have a bit more of a narrow window, and you may not meet that person. So it's like, choose your hard. What's more important to you? Is the love of a child enough? Because for some people it is. They'll be like, okay, well, I don't need to be madly in love with my partner. I just really want the love of a child. And that is good. That's a good thing to know. But if you really want to be madly in love with someone, it may be that you forego having a kid at all. Or you might be one of the lucky unicorns that slips through the kind of time space that is available to us right now with our health and where health currently is, and fertility, which is such a mystery. And then you get to experience that. But it's not rainbows and bunny rabbits. It's hardcore. It is so hardcore. So you just really want to choose the right partner. And then once you've and you're both on the same page, and it has to be as transparent as it can be, no secrets. You're going to see each other at your worst and at your best. It's a real trip of a lifetime. Then you can communicate. You have to be able to communicate. Communication is so important in a relationship. That's how you make the connection and prevent the other person from feeling alone, and preventing your own feelings of loneliness. So you need to have communication, and then you can start planning for a baby. And that's all physical, really. I mean, as soon as you know that you want to be a parent, you can start praying for a high soul. That's the first thing you do. You could be 11 years old and you're like, yeah, I really want to be a mom one day. So you can just start praying for a high soul whenever you can. And also for your friends, if some of your friends want to have babies, you pray for a high soul on their behalf, because you get a return on interest 3 times. Is it 3 or 6?
6.
And then it's all physical. So you come to someone like me and I'll help you build the pranic reserves. Like, that's all about learning how to cook, filling your fridge with good things. And, if you're a little bit of if you're a purist, then you can do 90% healthy food. But if you're, a bit of a hedonist, you could do 80-20. And then that can be your lifestyle. And then as you move towards actually trying for a baby, then you can slim it down again if you want. But in Ayurveda, you're supposed to do a 6-month cleanse, which is really, really easy to do. It's more about cleansing your kitchen and not having bad ingredients in the kitchen. because if it's there, you're going to eat it. So it's just like you just get rid of all the stuff that is poisonous, and then you just get used to feeling so good that you just don't ever stop.
I love it. You make it sound so easy, and you're inspiring me to up level. So thank you.
Well, if you think of our bodies, right? The human body is made of organic matter. We've been evolving alongside animals and vegetables since we were in a cosmic pond, side by side. It's not complicated. You just go to the shops and you buy something that isn't in a, that hasn't been processed.
Totally.
And you just put it in your mouth.
Are there like top foods or herbs that you work with a lot when you're making food for the new moms and people that are preparing for pregnancy also? Ghee is my number one favorite ingredient. But yeah, you want a balance of the rainbow when it comes to the vegetables. You want a variety. It's good to eat local seasonal foods that have been in the earth somewhat recently. Farmers market foods are the best because they're cultured with so much love by the farmer, and they're seasonal and they're local. And then, I'm not a vegetarian. I have experimented with different diets my whole life just because I'm interested, and I've always been interested in nutrition. So I've kind of been experimenting on my body since I was a teenager. And I was a vegetarian for like 3 years as a teenager. I would always secretly eat sausages. Like and bacon. I wasn't a very good vegetarian because my body craves protein. That's something that I need. And I need brown meat. I like protein with a lot of fat in it. And that is also really, really good for your fertility. I mean, the kundalini vegetarian diet, it can work because why? Because we're pulling energy from our environment on top of the diet. So we're pulling in prana from other places. And the teaching is you don't want to eat the energy of the animal. You don't want that in your system. The suffering, the trauma of being, factory farmed, standing in your own feces. Chickens don't even have legs in some factory farms because the floor is so acidic, their feet kind of melt. Oh, wow. So it's like, so if you eat wild game, I mean, there's a lot of that up here. A lot of my friends are hunters, and when I go hang out, they send me home with a bunch of stuff that they hunted themselves, and it's so different, and it's so you don't need as much. It's a lot more nutrient dense. Like I get really full and satiated by a lot less food. Wow. Like junk food is not nutritious, so you may eat a huge pizza that was frozen and be hungry 2 hours later because it's not nutrient dense. But freshly farmed hunted protein, you really don't need very much of it at all. It's really interesting. That's something that I noticed. Another thing I would say for fertility foods is, eating foods that you enjoy. Pleasure is important. And obviously the pea fruits all increase fertility. So it's like eat fruit to bear fruit. And it's P for potency. Sorry, I'm just looking at I have a lunch date in half an hour. So yeah, and eat, and when you're eating, make sure you're sitting at a table with your feet on the floor. And you put your knife and fork down whilst you're chewing. And you chew properly because digestion starts in the mouth. And make sure that you're in rest and digest, because then your body is going to be able to extract the goodness out of whatever you give it. Because sometimes a healthy diet is prohibitively expensive. And also it's time consuming. Not everyone has time to cook something from scratch at every meal.
In Ayurveda, you know, food that is freshly prepared has more prana in it. So it's like, if you want to have a packed lunch, what you need to do is put it in a thermos flask so it doesn't lose heat, because once the food has lost the heat, it has lost a lot of prana. So when you warm it up, you know, a lot of the vegetables have denatured already, so you've lost some of the nutrition, etc., etc. So that's like a little hack that you could do at work, but that's not possible for everyone, because, you know, some people have 3 kids and it's like, cooking is really, really time consuming, and some people don't enjoy it, but it's an essential. We all need to eat. Otherwise, you know, food brings people together. It's something we all have in common. So you have to find a way to live a healthy lifestyle and find a way to enjoy cooking. It's like, people say, yeah, I don't enjoy cooking. I'm like, well, do you even enjoy paying your taxes? It's like, I don't enjoy paying my taxes, but I still do it because of the repercussions of not doing it. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't cook, then you're more likely to have an illness at some point. And you're seeing it more and more. Like, kids are so sick right now in America. It's like, I'm amazed by some of the illnesses that kids have. It's actually really sad. I'm like, we're not taking proper care of these children. We're using our own laziness as an excuse to not do the right thing. And they're paying the price, because, you know, one of the best gifts you can give a kid is a good education, which I think comes from world travel more than school, because then you're actually meeting people from other cultures, and you're bursting your bubble, and you're remembering that there's a whole world out there, and that you need to not be too attached to whatever it is that you think that you are, because it doesn't. I mean, there's a whole world out there, and things are constantly changing. And then the second best gift you can give a kid is an amazing health, by feeding them fruits and vegetables and high quality protein whilst they're still growing. It's like, parents are like, why are kids so energetic? I don't get it. Like, it's like they're insane. And I'm like, yeah, it's because they're so close to the life force. They're so close to that portal. And all they are doing is growing. And adults forget this, because we stop growing in our mid-teens. And then suddenly you use that. You hear my chicken in the background. suddenly you have this excess energy that you can channel into your career, or you channel into your partnerships, and you use that life force energy in a different way. But kids, all they're doing is growing and changing. And you know this from their clothing. Like, there's no point in buying them, like, their wardrobe is going out of fashion every few months because of of how much they're growing. And, you know, that is a short window of time that you can give them that gift. And it is not normal that we're seeing kids with the allergies and that, you know, and I think it's simple ingredients that you need to omit. In America, it's like, get rid of high fructose corn syrup. That it's so sweet. It's not natural. Fruit in nature is always balanced with something else. It's juicy. It's balanced with a little bit of sour, a little bit of salt or something. Unless you're chewing on raw sugar cane, like, you're gonna fuck up your palate so much if you eat sweet food like that, because just get so used to the flavor of the sweetness, and it's so enhanced and unnatural that you start to not be able to taste subtle flavors. Like, some people might find vegetables boring. Well, how about you go on a sugar cleanse for a month, and you don't eat anything sweet, and you start chewing your food properly? Trust me, the vegetables will start to taste sweet once you start chewing them. And that's one of the reasons why drink mate, like, is going out of fashion, because it's so bitter, and so it completely affects my my palate. And it's my job to be able to taste whether something is flavored in a balanced way. Like, that's something that I have to take care of my palate all the time. And if I eat too many sweet foods, I notice that I can't taste things.
Wow.
So get rid of high fructose corn syrup. The other one is canola oil. That stuff is like, yeah, it has a high smoke heat, but so does ghee. And ghee tastes like caramel, and it hasn't been highly processed. Like in your kitchen, the cooking oils that I use are ghee and coconut oil. I use coconut oil for people who are allergic to dairy or don't have dairy or whatever. And I sometimes use avocado oil, but I don't like the flavor.
Okay.
My cockerel. I don't, it has a subtle kind of gloopy flavor that I don't like. And I'm not the biggest fan of coconut oil either, unless it's in sweet food or like Thai food or something. But and olive oil is for drizzling. You're not really supposed to cook with that. You can also cook with unsalted butter, and you can cook with olive oil if you mix it with ghee.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, but I mean, unless you want something crispy, because olive oil tends to make things a bit more crispy. Sometimes I do, but for me, that's like being naughty, cooking with olive oil. That's my rebellion. But I would never, if I saw canola oil in someone's kitchen, I would throw it in the trash.
Me too.
And buy them ghee for Christmas. But yeah, and also ghee is pretty expensive. One jar of ghee is expensive. It's like $40, but if you make it at home, it's $20 a jar. And it's also it's part of, like, one of my favorite things to do when I'm working with someone is making ghee in the kitchen when I first get there, or bringing them a thing of ghee, because it's like I make the ghee with the mantras playing, and I do it on the special days, and it's like witchcraft ghee. So it's like, I know it's going into all their food and it's nourishing them on another level.
Totally.
And if you make ghee in someone's house, like one jar of ghee takes 20 minutes for me to make. Or you could do like 3 jars, which would take an hour or so. But you're blessing the whole room. And you're kind of like, you're resetting the whole space when you're doing that.
Totally.
So your kitchen can become like a spiritual little place. Your oven becomes an altar. Your cutting board becomes an altar. And the whole thing can become a spiritual practice. Like when I'm cooking, I'm trying to concentrate as much as I can, because I'm cooking for so many people now. And I have a time limit, which I don't usually have. And so I'm like completely sucked in to the food. And it's like a soothing meditative experience for me. I'm not like thinking in my head, oh, I hate this. Oh, this damn carrot. Like I'm like totally sucked in to my hands. And cooking is sort of like you're making mudras with your hands whilst you're using your tools. And I'm just like, oh, this is my favorite thing to do. I would do this for anyone. And I honestly don't understand people who don't like cooking. And it was funny because when I worked at a culinary school in LA, I worked there as a teacher for a year. It was interesting to see people learn how to cook, because so much of it is physical and it's hand-eye coordination and it's posture. So it's like I could really see how people are so used to sitting in a chair and not being on their feet and not using their hands, not working with their hands, like typing. Like that's how they're using their hands. And being on their feet for 8 hours a day was really painful. You know how when we do teacher training, like learning to sit on the floor, it hurts your spine, like sitting cross-legged on the floor. I remember at the beginning of teacher training, my back was just like in agony, and then by the end of teacher training it was totally fine. So it's like that, it takes some getting used to. And so I say to people who don't like cooking, I'm just like, just do it more often and make things that you enjoy eating, so that there's something at the end that motivates you. Like, people have an interesting relationship with food. Like when you're feeding people, you do see their childhood. You see a lot of how they were nourished as children. And you see this like emotional connection to food and what it symbolizes to them.
You can see that from here, like from looking from Europe to the States or to the UK also. you can clearly see what taking the kids away from the lunch table and dinner tables every day for at a very early age, how that really disrupted any healthy eating culture. Like I have many clients, trauma clients, which have eating disorders from the United States, and it's very interesting how it's always like um connected to, like, nobody teaches these kids. Like a lot of the kids in the States, because they go to the school so early and they have lunch there and they're on their own, the whole the culture aspect and the nurturing aspect of food is just not taught by example. So I
I also think
interesting from afar.
There's a disconnect between the value of the motherly love and associating it with like being your maid. So there's like this pride of the mother role that has been sucked out of, you know, what it means to be a mother, where, you know, women aren't proud to take care of their babies. It's like seen as you're a maid or something. And it's an undervalued, the whole role is undervalued by so many people, including by women, more than anyone in a way. And it's what children remember, and it makes them feel really grounded. And if you think about it, if you're all eating the same food together, then you're all on the same wavelength as well. And it's that special time where you come together as a family at the same time every evening, and you talk about your day, and you're kind of tuning into each other's frequency, and you're like, as a mother, you know, you're tracking your kids all the time energetically. You can't really help it because they're kind of an extension of you, and you can kind of tune into your kid and be like, something's not quite right. I need to go and talk to them later on and see what's up. But yeah, I mean, culturally, it is, you know, more is not better when it comes to food, and convenience is not better when it comes to food. You know, you might have invented a cool little thing to cut an avocado up that takes 50 milliseconds less than if you did it with your hands, but the energy of your hands is not in the food. So convenience is skills lost. But it often means that it means that, you know, people put food in their mouth, that they heat it up in a microwave or something. And then they're like, why do I have this terrible leaky gut? Why do I have an autoimmune disease? And it's like, well, because you're eating food that was prepared by a robot that has no energy in it. And I would say another type of food that you want to eat or avoid when you're preparing for having a baby is something that will pacify vata and increase the kind of lusciousness of fertility. So vata is like, you know, microwaved pizza, cold foods, crunchy crackers, things like that. So you want things that are a little more luscious, like nourishing soups that are filled with spices and dripping with vegetables and things that have been under the sun really recently, and lots of root vegetables, lots of lentils, lots of I mean, I think steak is a fertility food. I mean, it's not very yogi, but I'm not a vegetarian anymore, so I don't feel too bad about it. But yeah, pleasure is a big one. And, you know, it's like fertility is an interesting subject to talk about, because it's like, I've had some girls come to me and they're like, yeah, I was trying for a baby with this guy and it just didn't work. And it was like over and over again. We had all these chemical pregnancies and it was just like the baby wouldn't stick. And then the relationship didn't work out. And I met this other guy and I didn't think I could get pregnant. And I got pregnant the following month. Yeah. So that's you know, there's like that level of pleasure also, which I think sometimes when you're dating and you really want to have a baby, sometimes you're not that honest with yourself. that the person that you're dating is not the right person, but your body is signaling to you in a subtle way. And you can choose to listen or not, depending on your free will.
Wow. This is a major exaltation of women's work download talk. So thank you very much. I'm very inspired. Is there any maybe final thoughts you want to share? Maybe your favorite kind of universal advice. You've already given us so much. And then also share your website for people that haven't met you before. Let them know where they can find you.
Well, if you want to work with me on getting your shit together and getting healthy and feeling juicy and creative as a woman, I work with women one-on-one. And then I am going to create an online school at some point to teach people how to cook properly. But it is such a mountain. And it's like, I only have 24 hours in a day and I just moved house again. So it's like, I'm slowly getting there, but I'm going to do it because I really want to do it. I don't really have anything other to share, other than, you know, if you're a woman, never underestimate how powerful you are. Please don't ever underestimate that. And that's it. I don't have anything else to say.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank
her
you.
website's georgianaluella.com. And if you're on this Instagram, you'll see her there. But all the other information, if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube in the future, her links will be down below. And yeah, thank you so much to everybody that's joined us and will join us in the future. And thank you so much, Georgiana. You've always inspired me for all the years I've known you, and getting to spend this hour with you learning has been really impactful for me. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to all the people that were with us in the Instagram live and that are here, and we'll be back very soon by the end of the month with a new guest, and you will see that first on Instagram. We will announce it and then we'll be back. Thanks everyone, and thank you, Georgiana, again for your time. All the best. Bye.
Thank you.
Satnam. Bye.
Satnam. Bye.